Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Bravo Docket. We are doing an episode of our legal brief today, and today we're going to discuss the defamation lawsuit that Michael Darby filed against Candiace Dilllard Bassett on February 15th, 2023. How dare he?
Not cool.
Not cool. So this was filed in Virginia State Court in the Circuit Court for Loudoun County. It took us a bit to find it. We actually had to ask all of you guys to help us find it, and one of our listeners came back and emailed it to us. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to talk about jurisdiction and venue and why this was filed, potentially why this was filed in Loudoun County?
Yeah. So before you file a lawsuit, if you are an attorney and you have a client that comes to you and wants to file a lawsuit, first you have to figure out, among many of the other things, what court has jurisdiction over this claim and what's the appropriate venue and where did it occur. And that can be based on a lot of things. For example, where somebody lives, where somebody does business. And here, Michael Darby is saying that defendant, meaning Candiace Dilllard Bassett, transacts business in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so that's why the jurisdiction is there. And then the venue is also proper because, according to this complaint, Candiace Dilllard Bassett has committed intentional acts and omissions causing tortious injury to Michael Darby within the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, I thought I couldn't dislike Michael Darby more, and then he filed this lawsuit.
I know. So what we're going to do today is read through the facts of the lawsuit. We're not necessarily going to do a deep dive into the claims or any responses that Candiace has made. We're just going to do a straight read and give our initial impressions of the complaint. So we'll start off, we can do a little popcorn reading. For those who don't know what popcorn reading is, I guess several of us in Southern California were told that when you're done reading something, you say popcorn and the other person reads it. And it's so freaking funny because we talked about that in a prior podcast episode. And I was listening to a random podcast with the guys from the show Workaholics because I used to love that show.
I loved that show.
And they were talking. Yeah, they have a podcast. It's hilarious for those who like a little bit of crass humor. And they were talking about popcorn reading and I lost it. Some of them were like, I've never heard of it before. And then the ones that had grown up in SoCal had heard of it. And I was like, oh my God, this is a topic of conversation on our podcast. Who knew? Who knew we would have that overlap?
I went to public school in Central Florida and I made a comment saying, we're lucky I can read. No one was doing popcorn reading. I had never heard of it before. And by the way, that's no shade to teachers in public school in Florida. Y'all are doing the Lord's work. I don't know how you're dealing with everything. You guys should be paid so much more than you are. That is no shade to you.
All right. So this is the facts. It says defendant Candiace Dilllard Bassett is a regular cast member on the reality television series The Real Housewives of Potomac. And in parentheses, it says the quote RHOP. In a footnote, it says the series is produced and published weekly by Bravo. On or about October 9, 2022, Bravo began publishing episodes of season 7 of the RHOP. Mr. Darby is a prominent, well, this is where he gets to write about himself. Mr. Darby is a prominent businessman, real estate developer, an individual in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland metropolitan area who has built extensive business and personal relationships and name recognition among members of the community. Mr. Darby is well regarded for his excellent reputation in the business community.
I like how they
Angela
had to put in the business community. I don't know anyone that has watched Michael Darby on TV that has come across and said, I just really like that man. I have such a good impression of him.
No.
Paragraph 7. Mr. Darby has appeared on the RHOP as a non-regular cast member. Mr. Darby's wife, Ashley Darby, is, like defendant, a regular cast member. Ashley Darby and defendant have an adversarial relationship. The two frequently argue, and on more than one occasion, defendant has expressed her disdain and contempt for Ashley Darby and Mr. Darby. This is sidebar with Ceci. I'm assuming that he's putting this in here to show actual malice. Or just ill intent?
Maybe. Or he's just providing some context for the judge to see, like, just context of why it came out. Because he wasn't involved in the season.
Which I know was intentional on his part. I'm sure he didn't want to sign another contract, wanted nothing to do with it, wanted to be able to go do whatever he wanted to do and not deal with the Bravo filming. But I'm also sure that he wanted Ashley to continue to make income in case she asked the court to break whatever prenup they have, which apparently was terrible, and wanted to be able to show she's making income. So that's my assumption. Paragraph 8. On or about November 12th, 2022, defendant, meaning Candiace, as part of her appearance as a cast member on the RHOP, attended a recorded event at Bluemont Vineyard in Bluemont, Virginia. Quote, the event. The event was attended by several other cast members of the RHOP, Bravo crew members, and staff employed by the Bluemont Vineyard. Popcorn.
All right, I just Googled it because I couldn't remember which one that was. And I think it was the vineyard where they were inside, kind of all around at a table. And it was a really far drive out to get there. And it was like the shady lunch or something.
Oh, was that Wendy's shady lunch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very beautiful vineyard. It's like very wooden and rustic on the inside and then has a huge expanse of green on the outside, but it's not at all in the city. Anyway, paragraph 9. During the event, which was recorded in full by Bravo, defendant engaged in conversation with other cast members, including Ashley Darby, while seated around a table. At a certain point, defendant and Ashley Darby engaged in a heated argument. Defendant, while addressing Mr. Darby's wife, shouted, well, come on, Mr. Darby's wife. Okay. Anyway, I mean, they were still married. Shouted, quote, and this is bold, Ashley, now it gets underlined, your husband likes to leave you and go to a man named Censored's house and suck his dick. There's a footnote, says, the name of the man mentioned by defendant was censored by Bravo. At this stage, the band's full name and true identity is not known by Mr. Darby. Okay. And then it says emphasis added. Popcorn Angela.
And instead of saying defendant, I'm just going to say Candiace. Later, during Candiace's monologue, Candiace, completely unprompted, stated, quote, I was not supposed to talk about this person, but he says Michael Darby is a client of his. In making the statement, Candiace initially hesitated and looked off camera, indicated that what she was about to say was salacious and imprudent, but nonetheless proceeded to intentionally utter the defamatory statement. Popcorn.
On or about November 13, 2022, defendant's defamatory statements were subsequently broadcast and published to third parties across the country, parentheses, and the world, as part of Season 7, Episode 6 of the RHOP. The episode remains viewable online at www.bravotv.com/The Real Housewives of Potomac /Season 7 /Episode 6 /Burnin' and Beefin'. Last accessed February 2nd, 2023. I like how he included the world. It reminds me of the Jackie Beard Robinson lawsuit against Melissa Gorga and Envy and Andy Cohen and literally everyone that her reputation across the world is now tarnished. Defendant made these statements despite being fully aware that the statements and the factual implications contained therein were false or likely false. Further, defendant made both statements, underline, during a recorded episode of RHOP, meaning that defendant, here's another underline, knew her defamatory words and false accusations would subsequently be televised and published to countless third parties across the country. Popcorn.
Paragraph 15. Candiace's statements are not opinion statements. Rather, the statements contain factual allegations about Mr. Darby, his wife, and his actions, which are demonstrably and provably false. Candiace made these false statements with the intent that Mr. Darby's personal and professional reputation would be injured and that Mr. Darby's present and future friends, colleagues, business partners, parentheses, as well as the general public, would be dissuaded from associating with Mr. Darby. Okay. Again, sidebar with Ceci. This is so difficult for me because he did not have a good reputation from these actions on the show as it was. I mean, there's video of him.
Yeah, like how are they going to measure? Right.
Yeah. Anyway, popcorn.
Like, yeah. Also, how is he going to prove it's not true?
Were the court to allow this to go forward, it would be very similar to our past episodes, our Smelly Cat episodes, where Lisa Vanderpump's deposition was taken saying, did you say this? Was this something that Brandy heard from you? So they would have to get her to, in discovery, name the person, because ostensibly, according to this complaint, Michael Darby has no idea who this could be. So get Candiace to name this person in discovery.
Right. No, yeah. It's much easier for her to prove that it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. She just has to bring the guy in.
Yeah, to say. And we were, you brought this up, Ceci, when we were at BravoCon at the Potomac. Yeah, talk about that for a second.
I don't think we heard it. We weren't there during the Q&A.
I thought we were.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, we missed it. But we heard.
No, we were at the Atlanta one. We weren't at the Potomac one.
No, we were in bed. We were listening to it on live stream.
When we were at BravoCon, when we weren't at BravoCon, we were back in our hotel room, furiously eating snacks and watching
the Twitter live
whatever
stream
was going
of
on.
Potomac. But we stopped during the Q&A so we could get there. But everyone was posting about how this guy had gotten up during the RHOP Q&A and point blank in front of Ashley, I'm the guy who either sucked Michael Darby's dick or got his dick sucked by Michael Darby. Just flat out. Like it. So
he said it, and I remember we were watching and we were like, oh, this is not the place for this. And then Ashley calmly responded, well, if that's true.
No, the one that we were watching that was horrible was Atlanta. During that Q&A, we were there in the audience when someone in the Q&A went off on Drew and said, how does it feel to be the most boring housewife or something?
Yeah, yeah. And that was just rude. It was like really bringing the whole room down when people made comments like that. Don't make comments. But, yeah.
I don't know how Ashley reacted to this guy.
I watched it because I went back and they published it on Peacock, I think. I went back and watched it later because I remember people were talking about it. And Ashley responded really calmly and was like, well, every time someone else has said this, there's been pictures. I'll believe it if you have pictures or something.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, so when we posted about this on Instagram, it was like, all we need is that guy to get to post, if that's the guy, and say it. Or all Candiace has to do is play them that episode in court from BravoCon, right?
Yeah.
Defendant's statements were defamatory and have irrevocably exposed Mr. Darby to public scorn, hatred, humiliation, ridicule, contempt, and or embarrassment. Mr. Darby has suffered tremendous economic and reputational damage as a result of defendant's defamatory statements.
Quick note on that. First of all, I hope the court doesn't let this continue or go forward for the sake of Candiace. But if it does, making that statement that he has suffered tremendous economic and reputational damage puts all of that at issue. And that would mean that you would get to do discovery on all of his businesses, income, economics, not just currently, but in the past to compare. He put all of that at issue. So then we can find out how much money he actually has, where it is, and say, okay, you have to prove your damages here. That's an element of the claim. What are your damages? How much money? And then he would have to prove that it wasn't from bad business decisions or normal fluctuations in the market and show, oh, Candiace's words had so much power that me, an international business tycoon, lost money on this. And he would have to prove that, which would be very difficult.
So difficult, but I can't wait if it does move forward. Do you want to keep reading?
Okay, this is paragraph 18. Further, Candiace's statements are actionable because they objectively imply Mr. Darby has committed a criminal offense in the Commonwealth of Virginia, including, but not limited to, soliciting or engaging in sexual acts in exchange for money, which is a crime pursuant to Section 18.2-364, blah, 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 of the Virginia Code, and adultery, which is a crime, and then it lists another code. So adultery is still a crime in Virginia, apparently?
I feel like Virginia is one of those states that has those weird laws that, you know, do you remember reading about this as a kid? Like,
yeah.
You can't
I live in Texas now, and it's way more terrifying here, I think, than anywhere else.
Oh, well, those are
if you're a woman.
I meant those are real. Well, those are real laws.
Yeah.
Like some states have weird laws that are laws, but are never in effect, like chewing gum or humming on an elevator.
Oh, yeah. Or driving with bare feet, stuff like that. Well, apparently this adultery crime is still on the books in Virginia. And it's what I don't get. He already admitted to it in another season when he was caught, didn't he admit to being in a hotel room with a woman who took the video? So this is so irritating. I feel like this is him using his money and power to scare people into not saying bad things about him now that he's not on the show anymore. Because I also noticed that he only sued Candiace. He didn't sue NBC. He didn't sue Bravo. So he didn't sue anyone with really deep pockets that's going to be able to shut this down very quick. You know what I mean? So he didn't sue anyone with really huge resources. He just sued Candiace. And I feel like this is the perfect sort of lawsuit for a response with a slap action or something, which I need to look up.
I don't know if Virginia has anti-slap. They don't. That's why the Depp lawsuit was filed in Virginia.
But I think they just passed one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Come on, Candiace, file an anti-slap. You just read here, he said that it's accusing him of breaking a crime of exchanging money for a sexual act. I don't think she said that he paid to suck someone's dick.
Well, I mean, she said, if you go back and look up, I think it does say that, like in the quotes.
It says Michael Darby is a client of his.
A client. So I think that's
I
the
took that to mean like a business client.
Oh, I immediately took it as it's a client, like prostitution client. That's how I immediately took it.
Oh, no, I took it like it's someone he knows, like it's a client of his that he's worked with to like legitimize that there's a relationship there. I didn't even think, interesting. Another reason why, and I haven't gotten yet to the causes of action because this is my first time looking at the complaint. I'm assuming that the reason he's talking about all these crimes is because he might be pleading defamation per se. In some states, just accusing someone of committing a crime is defamation per se. It's just like straight up defamation. So that might be why he's saying that she's accusing him of committing these archaic crimes. Okay, continuing. Paragraph 19. Defendant's statements are actionable because they are highly prejudicial to Mr. Darby and his profession and or trade. Additionally, defendant's statements, so Candiace's statements, are actionable under Virginia's, quote, insulting word statute, which is codified as VA Code Section 8.01 through 45. What? An insulting word statute? I'm sure he has it.
This has got to be some East Coast puritanical kind of stuff. Oh, I'm clutching my pearls.
These are the old-timey laws that don't make sense and are weird.
You have besmirched my good reputation.
Yeah. Virginia. Candiace's statements falsely accuse Mr. Darby of committing a crime or multiple crimes of moral turpitude. Such statements under well-established Virginia law are actionable as insulting words because they are deemed to incite violence and or breach the peace.
Well, they better not film any more episodes of any housewives ever in Virginia.
Yeah, they're screwed if this is like how the law is supposed to be read.
Paragraph 22 on January 17, 2023. Mr. Darby, by undersigned counsel, wrote to defendant, Candiace, demanding Candiace immediately cease and desist from publishing or making any further defamatory statements regarding Mr. Darby. See Exhibit 1. To date, Candiace has not retracted or otherwise accounted for her defamatory statements.
So the first count...
And so we do have Exhibit 1.
His letter.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more of the same. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, defamation per se. Called it.
Yeah.
All right, so his first count is defamation. No shocker there. It says the quotes are harmful and injurious to Mr. Darby's reputation and subject him to public shame, contempt, ridicule, and scorn. And it says the statements are false, that Candiace made them with reckless and negligent disregard as to whether the statements were true or false. She knew her salacious statements were false. She lacked any basis to form a reasonable belief that her statements were true. She knew that they would harm Mr. Darby's reputation. I don't think she thought they would harm his reputation. And that he suffered harm, economic and non-economic harm from her statements. Plaintiff demands $1 million in compensatory damages and $1 million in punitive damages, plus interest and attorney's fees and all costs associated with this action for defamation.
When you read that, all I could think of was the old Austin Powers Dr.
Same.
Evil. It's like,
$1
million. In my opinion, this is my opinion, this claim is such garbage. And this is my opinion. And it's just, he's had these things said about him. There's video that was shown of him touching people that didn't want to be touched. There was video of him in a hotel room at a casino that came out. There's all kinds of things that have been said on the show, in previous and off the show. You know, the video was not, I mean, it was part of a storyline, but it was taken by somebody who wasn't on the show and published and sold to a tabloid. So all of this stuff was done. So how would he say, oh, these statements now have defamed me and those other statements didn't? How would he even prove that? Like, oh, everyone had a really good opinion of me until when I decided not to be on the show anymore, that, you know, my reputation is now damaged.
That's what I was saying. It's going to be really hard for him to prove damages unless he has some sort of letter or something where someone is saying, I backed out on this deal because I heard you may have sucked a D, which would anyone pull out? I don't know.
Because that whatever business that is would be
sue them.
It's like it'd be homophobic. It'd be saying, yeah, because of your sexual orientation, I decided not to do business with you.
But that's how he would prove it.
I feel like this is an abuse of the legal process, in my opinion. This is how I
agree.
feel.
Yeah, and let me just summarize the rest of the counts, and I will go off with you. So there's defamation.
I can't wait to rant.
Yeah, there's defamation per se. Like I said, it's just something that is just straight up defamation. It's a lower burden of proof. And here it's because it suggested, or he claims Candiace's statement suggested that he committed a crime. And then it's count 3, insulting words. I don't practice in Virginia state court at all. This is the statute we were talking about.
It sounds like that's part of the defamation statute, maybe. It sounds like this is very similar to what you pulled in New Jersey. Well, I think it's another way to make a defamation claim. Like in New Jersey, it's specific type of defamation when you pulled that, when you
like prostitution,
allege, prostitution, or that someone is unchaste in their actions, which unfortunately, because of the way women have been treated for so long, a long time ago, having a reputation as being unchaste could mean that you wouldn't be able to get married. And because women didn't have any rights and couldn't even have a bank account or anything, if you can't get married, then that is very harmful for someone to spread those types of rumors back then.
Yeah.
But
now this just says it's codified as crimes involving morals and decency. So
accusing someone of doing morally indecent crimes. Yeah.
And again, $1 million. And then he wants a jury
$1 million.
trial. Actually, he's seeking $2 million because it's $1 million in compensatory and $1 million in punitive. So that's into that. Now let's go off. Yeah, this is so stupid.
This is our opinion that this is stupid.
Yeah.
This is our opinion that this is a scare tactic.
It just messed up. It's messed up. And like, I think Ashley Darby knew that this was going to be filed when they were filming the reunion, which is why she gave her little statement about what a good husband and father Michael Darby is. And she's shady. She probably knew it was coming and didn't give Candiace any heads up.
I don't know one way or the other.
Shady.
She's clearly terrified of him, is the way it appears. I mean, Ashley Darby, she's too terrified to take legal action, it seems like, to do anything. She's living in a house that he has full access to, that apparently they both are equal owners in the LLC, but we haven't seen the LLC documents. I mean, for all we know, he could have said, yeah, you have a 50% interest, but you have no voting rights. Like, you don't have any, you're not a managing member. You know, we don't know how he set that up. And he definitely is the old adage, he who has all the gold makes all the rules. He's got so much money and he owns a bunch of land in Somalia. There's a bunch of stuff with that. I mean, with the amount of money that he has and the resources that he has access to, that can be very scary, especially when you're not in the same position, which is why anti-SLAPP laws exist. Again, I didn't think I could dislike this person anymore, and then he filed this lawsuit. So it's...
Yeah. Yeah, no, the reason I said that Ashley said the statement is because she knew she would get hit with a similar lawsuit if she didn't give the statement that he was a good father.
Or
he probably
he could just
sent her a cease and desist letter too.
Yeah, he could stop paying the mortgage. He could Ravenel her, you know, where he's using his influence and power and money and everything else.
To me, she just about-faced so quickly, where she went from saying he was being a bad parent, and then at the reunion was like, he's the best parent ever. Like, he probably sent her a text or a letter being like, stop that, or I'm going to sue you, or pull out my money, or whatever.
I won't prevent you from being on the show, but if you're on the show, you better not say anything negative about me. So I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened.
All right. I think we should wrap this one up here. This is a longer legal brief.
Yeah. Our rants took up more time. So this is a longer mini-sode, it's a longer legal brief, but it contained our rants. So
all right.
Thanks, legal
team. Thank
team.
you for listening, everyone.